There's an old Russian proverb President Ronald Reagan used when he was negotiating with the Soviets on an arms deal. And it was this: trust, but verified. And what it meant is that, okay, we have signed this agreement to lower arms, and we all trust each other, but why don't we put a person there to verify that you're doing what you said you're doing? And so in other words, it means no trust at all. And if I said to you, okay, go and clean this room, and I trust that you'll do it. Now, if I'm hovering over you to verify that you're doing it, I'm not trusting you. If after you get done cleaning the room, I go through with a white glove and inspect it all, I'm not trusting you. In other words, I don't trust at all. And I think that's the attitude of the Israelites in the first reading. Trust but verified, meaning that they want to know that God's going to take care of them. Initially, they were kind of forced into it because they were fleeing from the Egyptians, and they reached the Red Sea. Now, do you want to go in the middle of a sea where there's huge paths of water on your right and left? Well, I'd rather not. Let's not tempt fate. But then they only had the Egyptians running behind them who would either enslave or kill them. So, of course, they trusted God. And so then they go through the Red Sea, and obviously the Egyptians are all drowned and they're safe. No sooner are they safe from the Egyptians than they complain. You know, we're going to die with no food or water here. And I don't know about you, but I mean, if I was God, I would be kind of upset, because here it is. You think after saving you from all the Egyptians and having miracles and crossing the Red Sea and this and the other, that, oh gosh, I forgot to feed and give them water. Oops, I guess they'll die in the desert. No. So he provides water and he provides manna. And manna, for you who don't know, it's kind of like what bread on the floor. They gather it all up, form it into loaves, bake it, and that's their bread. And so they can live off that. No sooner do they do that than they said, we're hungry for meat. Wouldn't it be nice to have some meat? And so then he does. Quail comes up, they eat all the quail and everything else. But there's one thing God wanted them to do. He said, you have to go out daily to gather this manna, so that you can always trust that each and every day I'll provide for your needs. There's only one day that you can gather a double portion. That's on the day before the Sabbath, so that on the Sabbath you can rest. You don't need to gather anything up. Well, if you can gather one extra day up, why not two? Why not three? Why not a whole week? Why don't we gather as much manna as we possibly can and stack it all up so we don't even have to trust in God every day? And what happens is that it all rots after a day. So they're forced to trust God. And what happens is after 40 days of wandering in the desert, 40 days that God provides food and water and everything else that they need, they finally learn to trust. And so years later, when they're in the middle of a tragedy, where they lost the Holy Land, when they're back in Babylonian captivity, when there's no way that they think they can get out of this, they'll remember and say, remember when he saved us from Egypt. Remember the Exodus. And if he could save us then, he'll save us now. We can trust in him. And that's what Jesus is inviting the disciples to do. That the people see the manna. He just multiplied and the bread and fish and fed 5,000. And now they want to do this. Give us this bread always, so I don't have to trust. So that I have it all right here. Everything's provided for me. And Jesus says that he's the bread from heaven. That it's only in Jesus Christ, his trust in him, can we actually believe. That's what the question. Do we really trust? Is our trust truth, trust but verified, or actual trust? Is it trust but verified, saying, yeah, I trust Jesus, but it's a whole lot easier to trust in him when I have a full bank account, my shelves are stocked, and I know what I'm supposed to be doing? It's easy to trust then. But it's not so easy to trust when things aren't going so well. I remember the story of a YouTube person that is a Catholic YouTuber who preaches, and he's from Australia. And he tells a story of when he got into preaching, lay preaching. This was before it was in vogue. This is before we'd heard other people do it. And he quit his job with the diocese, and the bishop told him, well, I'm not going to support you, not a dime. And if God wants it, he'll provide for you. If not, then it probably wasn't from God. And so he sells all he has. He sells his house, his wife gets a job, and he goes off and starts to preach. And as you would know, on the startup, things aren't going so well. And so there comes a point in time where he and his family is gathered for dinner, and the kids are getting rice and beans, and he gets rice. And he's saying, what gives here? This is pretty paltry. And she says, well, we have nothing else. And pretty soon the kids are going to be eating just rice too. And that was his point of trust. Would he trust that God would provide? Would he trust what God has called him to do? That I'm telling you that story obviously means it has a happy ending. But once we go through that trust, once we go through and know that Jesus Christ is there for us, then it doesn't matter what's going on around us. It doesn't matter if our bank account is high or low. It doesn't matter if our stores are and have lots of food or no. It doesn't matter if our job or our ministry is going well or not. We have that definite trust that Jesus Christ is there with us. In the second reading, Paul is saying that you must no longer live as the Gentiles do. And he talks about morality and stuff, but what it talked to me in reading it is, do we change our trust in Jesus Christ? Are we willing to trust God, or are we needing it to have it verified? May we trust the Lord.